Is Danny Gray in the doghouse? So far, 7 snaps this season, no catches. He looked good in the preseason. What's up?
No, Danny Gray is not in the doghouse. This is where Danny Gray is in his development. And I
Okay,
talked about it. I believe I talked about it on here where I
you
felt
did.
like, hey, he needs to improve at XYZ because I saw
Yeah.
it on his college film. Now, that's
Okay.
not saying he can't become more. But at that point in his development, I thought he lacked in a lot of key areas. And then when you
Such as.
couple that with going over to Kyle Shanahan's offense, which is extremely difficult for a young
Mm-hmm.
receiver, especially when
Mm-hmm.
you come from an offense where you don't huddle up. You usually look to the sideline. You got one route.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a tough transition into Kyle Shanahan's offense. So I don't think he's in the doghouse. I just don't think he's ready to maybe produce or contribute more than Debo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ray
Sure.
McLeod.
I got my eye on this situation because to me it feels like they drafted Danny Gray for Trey. And we're talking about this like offensive philosophy switch, not just the 11 on 11 run game zone read stuff, like going down the field with a strong arm quarterback that isn't Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, isn't it, Danny Gray is wasted on Jimmy Garoppolo unless he wants to start throwing the ball down the field. I thought it was for Trey, and then now he's not really. I mean, he hasn't gotten used that way. I understand he's not a complete receiver. There's a lot he needs to improve on, but in the meantime, you could give him a deep shot once in a while. But it doesn't seem like Kyle's interested in that, and I just don't see this offensive philosophy shift that we were all expecting, which is kind of weird.
I would have thought because I've watched a lot of Kyle Shanahan's. I mean we all have, right?
Yeah,
And he does things where he runs clear outs.
yeah,
And I would at the
yeah,
very least, and I thought he could at least excel on this, where we are going to run you straight up the seam and you're going to clear it out. If you pull coverage,
yeah,
great, that opens it up for our guys underneath. If you don't pull coverage, that means we have a one-on-one shot with you vertically and we're going to take that shot. And I at the very
yeah,
least thought we would see that. Now, I didn't go back and watch all 22. There could be one of his 7 snaps where he does do that, and maybe
yeah.
Jimmy just doesn't throw it, right? Like there is a scenario where that happened, but I'd say right now he's kind of limited with what he excels at. And I was talking to people, and they were like, "Croc, you're wrong. You just hate on Danny Gray. You hate him. You hate him." And I'm like, "Dude, no, I don't. I'm just telling you what I see." And I see somebody who
Yeah.
struggled to get off press versus
Sure.
like solid competition in college.
Yeah.
I saw someone that was really bad at the top of his routes, need to work
Oof.
on that and playing with more high end controlled speed.
Yeah.
And if he was going to win in an area, it would be vertical. And I think when you watch where he won vertically in preseason, right? Because he caught 2 goal routes, right? Did he catch 2 or 1? I
Yeah.
know he caught the one Packers. Why am I missing on one? Anyways,
Yeah.
where he can get guys is if you're off coverage. Oh, it was Patrick Peterson Vikings practice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're playing off coverage against someone who can run as fast, if you can't turn around, which off coverage is hard, especially if you have no help. That's why I was so impressed with what Hufanga did against Tyler Lockett in the slot. But
Yeah.
if you're playing off coverage against a guy like that and he's screaming and he runs 4.3, like it's tough. And he
Yeah.
can excel at that. But if you just say, hey, we're just going to play press against Danny Gray, I think that's an area where he definitely needs to improve. So, he was a late 3rd round pick. Clearly, he had these things that he potentially needed to work through. Maybe it takes another, the rest of the season, maybe an off season to really kind of grasp the aspect of how to win at the NFL level. But I
Yeah.
don't think he's in the doghouse. I just don't think he's good enough yet. I guess that's the best way to say it.
I just when they drafted him, I felt like my instinct was, oh, this is a Kyle pick. This is a Kyle guy. Like Ayuk, this is who he wanted. But then I look back and, he's not playing right now. And it's kind of fallen in the other category of people like Lance and Sermon, who got here and Kyle was strangely lukewarm on right away. And you're thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe this is just a developmental curve, or maybe Kyle doesn't like him. I don't understand. To me, Trey Sermon and Danny Gray were here for Lance. There was supposed to be a new offense that was going to go a new direction, and it's not here. It's not here at all. Either Kyle's resisting, or the guys got hurt, or it's just didn't pan out. But I almost want to ask, like, who drafted Danny Gray? Was it Adam
Well,
Peters? Was it Kyle?
here's the
You know what
thing
I'm
too,
saying?
man. And we talk about some of the guys that you just mentioned, and on a bad team, it wouldn't matter, right? Like you could
Right.
just throw those guys out there. Kyle talked about it last year. Like I'm not just gonna play guys
That's
just to
true.
play them
That's
because we
true.
drafted them or et cetera. Like
That's a good point.
when it comes to getting guys the reps that they need on field and that experience, like we would have to be losing, and that was
Yeah,
kind of his mindset, and
that's
that's
a
why
good
some
point.
of the young guys didn't play. Well, when you're on a team, let's say Jacksonville Jaguars, you have the opportunity to just go out there and work through your struggles.
Right.
Whether you're a quarterback, whether you're a receiver, whatever you are. And on this team, because it's so good, You just don't have that opportunity. So a guy like Danny Gray, who would play no matter what on some of these other teams and at least be out there on the field, you just don't get that opportunity against with the 49ers.
And that's why I feel like the Niners were the worst situation possible for Trey Lance. Everyone said it was a great situation. In a way, it was. But as you just said, he was never, ever going to be given an opportunity to work through his growing pains and struggles, which were always going to be there. He's a project.
It would have been a great situation if he would have played coming off of a 6-win season and just whatever you get from him, great. But going to the NFC Championship game was the worst thing. I think that was more so than where he got drafted. It was going to the NFC Championship game and then having to follow that up. That was the worst thing.
That's a good call. It would have been much easier last year.